Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination, cultivating true contentment, the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, at our simplified URL, tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From a Monday motivational post, recipes, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and readers' favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which is posted each Friday morning. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 360th episode of The Simple Sophisticate, and welcome to summer, or welcome to winter for everyone who's living in the Southern Hemisphere. We are all stepping into a new season, and I have been wanting to talk about this topic because I've been learning more about it myself. And so when I picked up this particular book that inspired today's episode, I said, okay, I'm ready. Let's talk about this because this book spoke to me. And you know how sometimes we've talked about this before. So many books that we've talked about on this podcast, they cross our paths when we are looking for them. There were a lot of light bulb moments. There were a lot of questions I have held in my heart for so many years that were never answered. And the answers that I would receive wouldn't make sense to me. And so I kept searching. Well, guess what? Many of those questions have been answered today, and a deep peace immediately set in when they felt that they were what I was looking for all along. What am I talking about? What book am I talking about? What's the topic of our conversation today? I'm talking about love. And I'm talking about Jay Shetty's most recent book, 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go. And that is our inspiration for today's episode. Now, before I get to all that we're going to talk about, so this is a lengthy episode. Sit down, snuggle in, relax, feet up, glass of tea, glass of wine, cup of tea, mug, whatever it is that's going to allow you to just digest everything we're going to talk about today. But at the end of today's episode, I have a delicious idea for you to ramp up the flavor in a matter of 30 seconds to a very quintessential French lunch dish. Now, in America, we have this dish for breakfast, and that's when I typically have it, but it is typically a lunch dish, and I'll actually be making it with you at the end of this episode because I'm recording this just before lunch, and I know I'll be starving afterwards, and that just sounds perfect. So I'll show you how simple it is to add flavor that doesn't cost maybe more than just stepping into your garden, or if you have to go to the market, it'll just take a couple dollars, and your eyes just might roll back in your head. They did mine when I had this at a restaurant recently. So anyway, that's the Petite Plaisir. That's the Petite Plaisir, and that will be at the end of the show. So let's talk about today's episode, titled How to Find Love, Be Love Instead of Look for Love, as taught by Jay Shetty. Let's begin with a quote from the book. We think love has to be obtained, earned, achieved, and received. We look for it in the form of attention and compliments and people acknowledging us. But actually, the greatest way to experience love is to give it. And again, this is from Jay Shetty's book that was released just this January, the 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go. A simple formula to love is to be it, and it appears. However, this seems either too simple for some of us or to not produce the, quote, type of love we had in mind. Such thinking to have a narrow definition of what love has to be in our lives to be fulfilled, or to refuse to let go and just be instead of chasing, demanding, swiping, or requiring, is to get in our own way when it comes to living a life every single day full of love. Because guess what? Such a life is possible. And it is part of what living simply luxuriously is all about. In fact, it's at its core. Because I will share today, it all comes down to finding peace with ourselves, embracing our true selves, and engaging fully with the world without expectation. But again, we are being asked to do less, not more, to look inward so that we can engage lovingly outward as well as lovingly toward ourselves. We are being asked to be honest about what makes us feel loved and stop engaging in practices that result in anything but. With all of that said, it was with great appreciation that I picked up Jay Shetty's second book that was released in January of this year, 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go. Now, I really appreciated this title, and I actually, when I learned he had released a book, or was going to release a book, I looked at the subtitle and I said, thank you. Because it's not about this catch. It's not about having to get something. I love and appreciated, just without reading it at that point in time, that he includes that part of being loving is knowing how to let it go. Because so often we forget that that's part of it. However, I did pick it up early this spring, late winter, at my local bookstore. And as I often let my mood or energy determine what I am ready to explore between book covers, I didn't begin reading this book until earlier this June. And as soon as I did, beginning with the very first page, I didn't put it down for one day until I had read it entirely. The first page of the introduction prepares you for what Shetty is trying to prepare the reader for when you finally reach the last couple of chapters, revealing what living a loving life, being love, is really all about. Shetty begins with an anecdote of a student asking what the difference between like and love is, and the teacher responding by sharing, quote, when you like a flower, you pluck it. When you love a flower, you water it daily, end quote. Of course, as someone who loves gardening and delights in all that gardening can and does teach us about life, if only we choose to be her student, this analogy held fast my attention and gained my agreement. Shetty goes on to explain how cutting a flower is equivalent to attraction, something that we covet but quite quickly lose interest in, symbolized by the wilting of the flower after it can no longer be sustained in the vase. But love is when we choose to keep the flower alive, not cutting it, and give it what the flower needs to grow year after year after year, the proper sunlight, soil, and water. And as every gardener knows, every plant has different needs when it comes to these 3 fundamentals. As well, a flower doesn't share its full awesomeness the first year, not even the second, and many times for a handful of years, which is why care over time, quote, doing our best over time, end quote, is when we, quote, fully experience the flower's beauty, the freshness, the color, the scent, the bloom, and you notice the delicate detail on the petals. You watch it respond to the seasons. You find joy and satisfaction when a new bud appears and feel a thrill when it blossoms, end quote. There are many types of relationships that involve love, and parallel with this analogy of caring properly and lovingly for a flower, and at the core of all of them is choosing to give daily effort and giving what the loved one needs as you get to know them over time. But just as this is being given in a loving relationship, this is being received so that you too can flourish and bloom into your fullest and most true self and potential. It's a two-way street, and so it takes awareness to make sure we bring knowledge about ourselves to every relationship. And before I get ahead of myself, in today's episode, I am drawing on the knowledge of Jay Shetty's that he shares in this book, 8 Rules of Love, and sharing the key components about the 4 ashrams of love, which when we consciously engage in each, can teach us how to be love at the deepest level and thereby elevate the quality of every single day of our life. I highly recommend picking up his book. If anything that we talk about today speaks to you, it is a wonderful resource full of specific examples, tools, and practices paired with his experience and guidance. Let's get started. So, this whole approach begins with shifting even the phrasing in our minds. I shared in the title that it's not about looking for love, but instead being love. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. That's the lens through how can we be love? Because if we recognize that this is a choice and that we have control over, it's not about, is someone going to like me today? Am I going to cross paths with someone today? No. Step back from that. You have no control over that. What you have control over is yourself. So it's shifting the mindset, the mind story to be love. And now I want to answer that question. How can we be love? So here we go. The first ashram of love is about preparing for love by learning to first be alone and then learning from past relationships so to improve our next one. Number 1, unlearn what we thought love meant. Conditioning about what love is begins early and is relentless. If we don't begin critical thinking about what love really is, we begin making decisions, small and significant, that prevent the real love that will deepen the quality of our life to occur, to be experienced, and to be shared. So that's the key part here. And we have talked about this often and through different lenses with different themes. It's not always about love we're talking about, but this idea of what are your thoughts and ideas and what have you been conditioned to accept as true? But actually, and you look back and you just examine everything. This is truly homework for the self. And that's why this is in the first ashram of love. It begins with preparing for it. Because if we bring the wrong definition and idea of love, we're heading down the wrong path. And we're only going to hit something that's painful or frustrating, or we just throw our hands up and go, but I thought this was supposed to, whatever you're supposed to is. So unlearning what we thought love meant. And we're going to talk about what love is. Don't worry, we're going to get to that. That's number 1. 2, savor the gifts of solitude as an act of self-love, whether you are in a relationship or on your own. Quote. Now, all the quotes I'm going to share today, unless I state otherwise, are from the book 8 Rules of Love by Shetty. Quote, solitude is the antidote to loneliness. The difference between loneliness and solitude is the lens through which we see our time alone and how we use that time. The lens of loneliness makes us insecure and prone to bad decisions. The lens of solitude makes us open and curious. As such, solitude is the foundation on which we build our love. End quote. When we discover the importance of solitude, we learn who we are. And in truly understanding ourselves, we become more clear about where to explore to find our purpose. Because this whole journey is not about finding someone to love. This journey actually is about you figuring out your purpose. That is actually it. And you might question and doubt that, but please keep tuning in because I will explain more as we get to this. This is something we've talked about before. It's about you being fulfilled, so you bring a fulfilled human being to whatever relationship you choose to enter into. And when we find our purpose, we become more secure within ourselves because we, quote, learn how to display our values, not how to advertise ourselves, end quote. To begin to, quote, let go of any anger, greed, ego, self-doubt, and confusion that clouds our heart and interferes with our ability to love, end quote. If we allow ourselves to be honest about what has made us insecure. Is it the fear of feeling loneliness? Or have we made an assumption based on what we've been told about when and how loneliness is felt? So long as we have feelings of insecurity, fear, and, quote, anxiety about loneliness, these very feelings prevent us from finding love, end quote. I want you to ponder this quote about solitude that Shetty shares. Solitude is not a failure to love. It is the beginning of love. That's where it all begins. Study after study has demonstrated that we often become more in tune and aware as students of life when we spend time on our own and in our own company. We can hear ourselves, observe what grabs our attention, learn new skills more completely and swiftly. And so whether we are in a relationship or not, regularly giving ourselves time alone is healthy and powerfully nourishing for a better relationship with ourselves and those we love. When we learn how to love ourselves through embracing solitude, we also learn how to love others. Not just a romantic partner, but all other people. When we learn how to be less critical with ourselves, we discover how that nourishes rather than belittles and thus builds trust. When we are honest with ourselves, we learn how to be honest with others when it may be difficult to do so, and to do so in a loving way. When we learn patience, compassion, and empathy, quote, we can use these qualities to love someone else. In this way, being alone, not lonely, but comfortable and confident in situations where we make our own choices, follow our own lead, and reflect on our own experiences, is the first step in preparing ourselves to love others. End quote. However, we must be careful to not stop giving ourselves love even if we choose to step into a relationship, which leads to another way to be loved that we will talk about later on in our list today. So that's number 2. Savor the gifts of solitude and view them as an act of love, whether you are in a relationship or not. Number 2, the power of presence. A fundamental skill of mindfulness, something talked about in episode 350 on this show, is being present. And simply because we are in our own company doesn't mean we are practicing presence. We can be present with our own company, with 1 or 2 people, with a whole crowd. And as Shetty points out, to distance ourselves from what we discover when we are fully present by distracting ourselves or keeping ourselves always busy is to avoid the most powerful tool we can learn, and that is being present. The reasons for doing this will only be known to each of us, which is with regards to why we keep ourselves busy, why we choose distractions rather than being present. So it is in being present that we can be honest with why we are fearful of being present, and with time, we begin to discover the gifts, the many gifts of being present, discovering what we value, discovering if we are being who we truly are or have put up walls or facades. And in time, and with help, if we choose to seek it out from a therapist, we discover why we did this and how to shed these false selves that are not us and begin to embrace what we love, embrace and explore our curiosities, and find a voice, our voice, and a direction that fuels us. It is this self-knowledge that we begin to gain self-awareness, and we can acknowledge that, yeah, there are weaknesses that I have, and if said weaknesses are something I want to improve, I can choose to do so. But just as powerful is knowing our strengths and beginning to play to those and not diminish ourselves, shrink, or accept limitations that may have been conditioned and thus believed by either certain people, institutions, or whatever environment is fine with us being less of who we really are. And then we begin to make choices that serve us better. It all begins with being present. The foundational gift of solitude is discovering ourselves. And when we know ourselves, quote, we'll be more willing to spend time pursuing our interests without needing the safety net of a companion. The activities you choose and what you learn about yourself from those activities will expand your self-awareness, end quote, and deepen your self-confidence. So that's number 3, the power of presence. This is all part of preparing for love. We're still in that first ashram of love. And I've included a link to the episode I just mentioned, The Skill of Presence, and why it is at the core of true contentment. That is episode 350 of this particular season, season 9. So you'll find it in season 9, wherever you listen to podcasts. So that's number 3. Number 4, understand the law of karma. I so appreciated this particular chapter because there's a lot of misconception as to what karma is. There's often a negative connotation. I think a lot of us say it when we think something negative will happen, but we also maybe partly in the back of our mind know that it can be positive too, but we don't often hear it discussed that way in public. So let's talk about what it really is. Quote, karma is the law of cause and effect. Every action produces a reaction. In other words, your current decisions, good and bad, determine your future experience. People think karma means that if you do something bad, bad things will happen to you, but that's not how it works. Karma is more about the mindset in which we make a decision. If we make a choice or take action with or without proper understanding, we receive a reaction based on that choice. You made a choice and you have to live with the consequences of the outcomes of that choice, good, bad, or in the middle. Punishment and reward are not karma's purpose. Rather, karma is trying to teach you. End quote. Each choice we make prompts an outcome or an effect. And during our time of solitude is the time to be honest about ourselves and learn from past relationships. Not to analyze the other person, but our choices that led to what worked and what did not. In other words, to examine as objectively as possible how we contributed to the events of the journey of each relationship. What can we learn? What do we need to learn? What decisions need to be approached differently? This is where we choose to be the student and live consciously, not by habit. Shetty points out that when we are young, we are shaped and influenced by choices made by others that we don't necessarily or at all have control over. So it could be our parents, the environment, schooling, religious instruction, etc. But as we step into adulthood and have the agency to make our own choices, we can, and it would be wise to do so, evaluate the impression of these influences that have shaped our thinking and behaviors and responses thus far. If we don't like the impressions, and this is really going to take time and it will really require hardcore honesty. But if there are ways of living that have been imprinted on you that do not sit well with you, and you may not even know how to explain why, it doesn't bring you joy, you don't feel full, you feel restricted, you feel confined, you feel limited, you feel pain, whatever it is, when you can be honest about that, you are starting to set yourself free because you're starting to find the road that is yours that will lead you to your purpose. If we don't like the impressions, we have the ability to, quote, gain the intelligence to curate our impressions, our own impressions, by choosing what we watch and who we listen to. We have the opportunity to revisit, edit, and unlearn past impressions, end quote. In other words, if we don't like the outcome of certain choices, maybe we made those choices. So now we're in adulthood and we are reflecting back on those past relationships. We're taking responsibility for the choices we made are the best choice at that time. It was an impression upon us that influenced that choice. But for whatever reason, we know it didn't sit well with us. It didn't turn out as we were told it was going to work out. Whatever it is, we can edit and make different choices. And those choices can have to do with anything and everything in your life, which of course includes not only the people you choose to date or potentially partner with, but also whether or not you choose to grow and step into your fullest potential, finding your purpose and thus finding and experiencing contentment. Shetty goes on to conclude that, quote, karma is a mirror showing us where our choices have led us. First, when we learn from the past, we heal it. And second, this process helps us to stop making the same mistakes, end quote. One last thought here on karma, and this can be applicable to anything in our lives and how we choose to live. Quote, if you put something into the world, you get it back, end quote. This can be looked at for positive and negative outcomes, as we discussed before. But let's start with the approach of trying to find love. What are you putting out in the world? If you are depending upon your looks, your clothes, anything on the exterior to be the determining factor in attracting love, and I put air quotes around it in this instance, you will attract someone who values what you have presented. Conversely, if you choose to simply be love and practice all that is shared in today's episode, and you step back from expectations and simply live your purpose, that is also who and what you will attract. Other people, maybe a potential partner, but other people, many more probably platonic, who value sincerity, who value similar passions, and the ethos you bring to your daily life. So think about that for a moment. What are you putting out to the world? That is what karma is, because you're going to get it back in some form or another. Here's the last quote to ponder on this topic. The promise of a happily ever after turns out to be an obstacle to happily ever after. How about that for a paradox? It was an idea that was presented, that was impressed upon so many of us, still continues to be. Maybe they're doing a little bit better about it, but still. And turns out that might be one of the obstacles we need to let go and rewrite our own. So that's number 4. Understand the law of karma. Number 5. Fill your own gaps. Quote, what you want from someone else, first give to yourself. End quote. When we wait and look outward for someone else to bring into our lives what we feel we are lacking, we are beginning from a place of insecurity and dependency, and that, in the long run, doesn't contribute to a healthy relationship. We all likely need to heal something in ourselves. We are never going to be perfect in the sense of we're always going to be learning something and trying to understand why we are, we feel a certain way, whatnot. But deep healing, if we keep ignoring it, will keep us in a rut that prevents us from making constructive decisions because we're coming from a place of lack. As I will talk about later in our conversation today, our partner can and should be our guru. Now, hang on with regards to what that means. Don't get ahead of me here, because sometimes we misunderstand what a guru is. And we should be their guru. But we have to know how to heal ourselves in order to receive the support. They cannot do the homework. Our partners cannot do the homework for us. That is what gradually will weigh down a relationship and create an unhealthy connection. Shetty shares, quote, once we fulfill our needs, our own needs, we're in a better place to see what a relationship can give us, end quote. So those are the 5 components that really spoke to me as I was reading through this book when it comes to the first ashram of love, preparing for love. And once you have done your homework, so this is homework. All those things are things you do, preparing for love. Once you have done your homework and you've embraced solitude and self-examining your past choices, the karma in other words, the karma you created and how it served you, acknowledging what choices need to be made differently in order to create different outcomes, then we can bring with us valuable knowledge that will help us to be love more truly in every connection we make, including with ourselves. And then this will help us step ever closer to experiencing what love really is. This is not to say you stop spending time in solitude or stop self-examining when you've gone through these preparation steps. No. You now have the skills of each, and to be effective, they must be practiced regularly as life's journey continues to unfold. So you're continuing to do, it's like exercise. You're continuing to do the skills to keep those muscles toned, to keep, your if you're doing meditation, to keep your mind sound and strong and able to respond rather than react. So you have the skills now. You have them. Start practicing them. Start doing the homework, and you are getting closer. The second of the 4 ashrams of love is, quote, the stage of life when we extend our love to others while still loving ourselves, end quote. Number 6, understand the 4 stages of love. Repeatedly, it is shared in this chapter when Shetty starts talking about the second ashram, that to know if we love someone will take time, plain and simple. Time with each other again and again. Choosing to share time and withholding expectations and letting go of any rigid timeline. After all, if we enter with these 2 as guidelines, then it isn't love we are looking for, and we are not being love. So what are those 4 stages? Now, and this is interesting and important to acknowledge. Unlike the ashrams that we're talking about, and even the ashrams that we're talking about are going to be cyclical, because you're going to be doing some of them while you're doing the other, and they're not always necessarily in that order. However, for example, you might have been in a relationship or in a relationship, and so you're learning how to then prepare for love because you realize, I need to figure out how to be love. So you might put them in a different order. They all, though, need to be there. And the same with this one. The 4 stages of love. We have attraction, then we have dreams, Then we have struggle and growth, and finally trust. Again, these can come in any order, and I think that's so important to point out. But it is important to note that we experience them with our partner, and that is how we know that love is being practiced, both given and received. So each of these stages takes time. Sometime events will be unwanted, but will play a hand in helping us experience a particular stage. But Shetty assures, quote, if we gradually unveil our personalities, values, and goals, we start to see if there is a connection, end quote. And the key is that this gradual unveiling be reciprocal. What is important to keep in mind is that even if a relationship doesn't meet all 4 stages, for example, when you hit stage 3, struggle and growth, the struggle occurs and boundaries are made clear. You set them, and if one person doesn't respect the boundary, even after you have been clear about it, about what you need or the other person needs, it doesn't mean that relationship is a failure. Yes, it should end because the person is receiving knowledge and choosing not to work with it. But it is a good thing because you have learned that you are not a good fit to live a fulfilling life. And what you have done, or what they have done, depending on how it panned out, is a loving gesture. You've communicated lovingly. You've honored yourself. And the love is not only with regards to that partnership in that moment, but to you. And that's something to keep in mind. And this will actually help both of you because it allows you to both be happy, because you're not going to be stuck in a relationship that was not supposed to work out with regards to what you learn about each other and how you want to experience life. However, if after reaching stage 3, you have communication healthily exchanged, knowledge is learned, and you both engage in a manner afterward that aligns with what each other is accepting or what it honors the boundaries, now you have this better understanding of one another, and you each have more clarity, and the relationship has deepened. And that is how you begin to love one another. That is when love is taking place. That is growth. That is also number 6, understanding the 4 stages of love. Number 7 is be trustworthy. So you're attempting to date or start new relationships, or you're looking for, potentially dating someone. And this seems commonsensical, but let's talk about it. To talk a bit more about the 4th stage mentioned previously, which is trust, as I just mentioned, the 4th stage is trust, which can come at any time. It doesn't have to come in the 4th place. But in order to find someone we can trust, we must be someone who is trustworthy. Again, we cannot control others' choices, only our own, and we attract what we put out into the world. Remember, karma is a mirror. So if we are untrustworthy, we actually attract untrustworthy behavior to us because we think, and I don't mean to say that person is going to be trustworthy that's walking down the street, and that you're going to be attracted to them simply because you're untrustworthy. Listen, but hear this out. So we create this because we think others are untrustworthy because we are. So simple here. So this is a really simple concept that when we think about this for a moment, it's about what we have our mind story set on. What is it that we think other people are going to do? And if we think they're going to be untrustworthy, they often prove us right, partly because we are demonstrating that we don't trust them just by believing that. So simple. So let's look at this. All of this ability to find people to trust begins in the first ashram, becoming comfortable with solitude and becoming knowledgeable of ourselves and how we have gotten in our own way, and thus changing what we now know was not constructive. This builds the trust in ourselves that we will then connect with others. And again, it is important to remember that trust takes time to build and is revealed through the stages that we just talked about, especially during the 3rd stage of love, the struggle and growth period. Shetty shares there are 3 types of trust: physical, feeling safe in their presence and you feel good being around them, you feel seen; mental trust, trusting their mind, ideas, and thoughtfulness, not necessarily an across-the-board consensus of agreement on topics, but you trust how they make decisions. And then there is emotional trust, and this is where their values and who they are as a human, you trust what that is. You trust their values, you trust how their ethos, basically, of going through the world. So again, you cannot observe or experience all of these in a short period of time. So take time to observe, but also to be yourself and be truly seen by the person you are getting to know. So everything we're talking about here is two-way street. You're giving this, but that's also something that you should be experiencing with that person as well. So that's number 7, be trustworthy. Now I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break to introduce you to today's sponsors, but I'll be right back to talk about the 8 remaining ways to be love. The Simple Sophisticate is sponsored by Bombas. Summer is better with Bombas. Their thoughtfully designed clothes make you feel effortlessly at ease. From breezy, tagless tees to second skin soft underwear to perfectly cushioned, sweat-wicking socks. As the weather gets warmer, Bombas is inviting you to get outside and find your outer peace in socks, underwear, and t-shirts you can effortlessly move and relax in all season long. Bombas makes clothing designed for warm weather, from soft, breezy layers you can move in with ease to socks that wick sweat and cushion every step. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the number 1, 2, and 3 most requested items in homeless shelters. That's why for every comfy item you purchase, Bombas donates another comfy item to someone in need. Their no-show socks are made with breathable yarns for a barely there feel, plus silicone grips and a contour design to prevent slipping down or sliding around. I wear their socks every single day I take my dogs for a walk. And in the summer, it is the no-show socks. And I don't even know that they're there, but they provide the protection and the comfort that I want. And they last so long. In fact, many of their socks are 4 or 5 years going strong, and I do wear them so often. Bombas 100% happiness guarantee means you're covered for life. Reach out anytime to their happiness team for easy returns, exchanges, or replacements. So far, Bombas has donated over 100 million items, and each purchase adds to that impact. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, go to bombas.com/sophisticate and use code sophisticate for 20% off your first purchase. That's Bombas, BOMBAS.com/sophisticate and use code sophisticate at checkout. Bombas.com/sophisticate, code sophisticate. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Honeylove Shapewear. The reviews are in. Honeylove came out on top for the best wedding day shapewear. With wedding season upon us, this is the ad you've been waiting for. Whether you are a bride, a guest, or looking for an everyday lift, Honeylove is your go-to for all things shapewear. Honeylove has revolutionized compression technology, so you no longer have to feel like you're suffocating while wearing effective shapewear. You'll immediately feel and see the difference. And as a listener of this podcast, you'll get 20% off your entire order with promo code SIMPLE. As someone who enjoys wearing slim silhouettes, having shapewear that works and is comfortable is key. And that hasn't always been the case with all previous shapewear I've worn. Thankfully, Honeylove's best-selling Super Power Short is the go-to that does it both. It has targeted compression technology that distinguishes between areas where you want more support and areas you need less compression. Their Signature X targets and sculpts your midsection without squeezing your natural curves. It's designed to work with your body, not against it. The Super Power Short is helping ladies everywhere sculpt and smooth from stomach to thigh by offering just the perfect amount of compression. You won't have to worry about it rolling down either, which is something that I get so frustrated with other brands, thanks to their flexible boning that's hidden in the side seams. And they also offer built-in bust support lifts without underwire, shapewear that is comfortable. Yup, you heard that right. But it doesn't stop there. Honeylove has more than just sculpt wear. They have incredibly comfortable bras, tanks, and leggings for everyday support. And it's just as easy to put on as it is to take off. Shapewear shouldn't be hard. Their products make you look good and feel good, whether it's for a wedding, an event, or an everyday boost of confidence. Honeylove is the perfect +1. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, treat yourself to the best shapewear on the market and save 20% at honeylove.com with promo code SIMPLE. Again, that's Honeylove, HONEYLOVE.com. and use the promo code SIMPLE for 20% off. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Hulo. Have you ever tried a buckwheat pillow? They are totally different, as you might imagine, than the fluffy, soft pillows most of us are used to. which is why I was excited to try Hulo's buckwheat pillows. And I have been. What I can say is it's something you've got to check out. Perfect for keeping you cool, as Hulo stays cool and dry compared to pillows filled with feathers or foam, and most pillows absorb and retain body heat and moisture, which makes your pillow feel warm and humid, but buckwheat tends to breathe better. No more flipping to the cool side of the pillow. And it supports your head and neck how you want to. It really does mold to your head, unlike a traditional squishy soft pillow, which will collapse under the weight of your head. A Hulo pillow made of buckwheat supports your placement of your head. People love this pillow. Go to their website and check out the reviews written by their customers. Here's a test to see if this might be a great pillow for you to check out. Are you someone who uses more than one pillow to get the proper support? I've been there, done that. This is a sign that your pillow isn't firm or thick enough. Hulo support allows you to keep your head and neck where you want them. You can add or remove fill from the zippered opening, and this gives you the ability to adjust the pillow's thickness to your liking. It also allows you to remove the fill so you can wash the case with ease. People have been sleeping on buckwheat pillows for centuries. They have been used in Japan extensively and remain relatively popular to this day. You might also see them on the pillow menu at fancy hotels. And as you might imagine, it's a bit of a more natural way to sleep on buckwheat. What are you laying your head on every night? Perhaps it's a sack of plucked bird feathers or a petroleum-based foam. Hulo is made in the U.S. with quality construction and materials. The certified organic cotton case is cut and sewn for durability, and the buckwheat is grown and milled in the United States. So here's the deal. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, sleep on it for 60 nights. If Hulo isn't for you, just ship it back and they'll give you a full refund. Go to hulopillow.com/simple sophisticate. That's HULLO pillow.com/simple sophisticate. If you try more than one pillow, you get a discount of up to $20 per pillow, depending on the size. Get fast, free shipping on every order, and 1% of the profits are donated to the Nature Conservancy. Give the gift of better sleep. Hulo is a unique gift your family and friends will appreciate every night. Welcome back. Let's dive into the remaining 8 ways to be love. Number 8, put your purpose before your partner's. Quote, you want to go on a journey with someone, not to make them your journey, end quote. In a post I wrote a couple of years ago, inspired by Shetty's first book, Think Like a Monk, the concept of Dharma is shared. That's spelled DHARMA. What is Dharma? And this is also something that I then talked about in detail in my most recent book, The Road to Le Papillon. It's a simple equation of passion plus expertise plus usefulness equals Dharma. Shetty doubles down on this truth that will lead us each to contentment should we adopt it, when he talks about the necessity for both individuals in a partnership to put their purpose first for themselves, followed by the relationship and any other values that they may have. Why is honoring your Dharma, your purpose? So when we say Dharma, we mean your purpose, vital to do in a relationship just as much as it is if we are not in a relationship? Here's the answer. Quote, Dharma clarifies your values and priorities to yourself and your partner, end quote. Shetty goes on to explain the other 3 fundamental pursuits. So Dharma is one pursuit that drive us forward in life, thus shaping our choices and actions. When you have found your Dharma, you, quote, spend money with a clearer sense of how it should be spent, and you pursue love with a desire to create a meaningful life with your partner. Eventually, these 3 pursuits, Dharma, the money aspect, and the desire to create a meaningful life with your partner, lead to the 4th pursuit, which is moksha, MOKSHA, where all we do is devoted to a spiritual journey, end quote. I want to share another quote he shares with regards to purpose and Dharma. Quote, your purpose has to come first for you, and your partner's purpose has to come first for them. Then you come together with the positive energy and stability that come from pursuing your purposes, end quote. Finding and continuing to pursue your dharma, quote, insulates and protects our self-esteem, end quote. And it is because we continually value and prioritize our dharma that we can remain more stable during the ups and downs of life, which benefits our relationship. By maintaining your identity outside of the relationship, you are not in danger of letting the relationship define you. You bring your full self and love of life to the relationship, choosing, not needing, to be with this other person. Quote, Dharma helps you live a passionate, inspired, motivated life, a life you want to share with someone. You also have the pleasure of living alongside someone who is fulfilled. There is great joy in seeing the person you love doing what they love, end quote. And the gift of knowing what it feels like to pursue your own dharma gives you insight into the struggles and elevating highs that come with the choice to do so, enabling you to be a truly supportive partner along their journey as they are of yours. But before we move ahead too quickly, what happens if I'm not pursuing my dharma or my partner isn't pursuing theirs? Here's a simple answer. Quote, when we aren't pursuing our purposes, troubles arise. End quote. Shetty explains that often when we may think the relationship has a problem, it is actually a result of one or both of the partners not following their purpose. Simple and true. So just to remind, to take us back to the first ashram of love discussed earlier in our conversation, find your purpose, prepare for love. This is often the hardest part of knowing how to be love, but is, Shetty underscores, the most important. Why? Quote, if we don't learn the lessons of the first ashram of love, then we won't know how lovable we are and what we have to offer, end quote. This works both ways, as each partner does this for themselves. So that's number 8. Put your purpose before your partners. Number 9. I want to chat about this idea of being your partner's guru and they being your guru. We mentioned it briefly earlier, and I want to explain what this actually means. First, what is a guru? Shetty explains that we must think of it as how our actions impact our partner. And this is vitally important to understand lest it be misinterpreted. Quote, being a guru for your partner does not mean imparting wisdom to them, but it does require patience, understanding, curiosity, creativity, and self-control, end quote. This is an approach I think is often misunderstood and can be easily misapplied if we don't come into the relationship knowing what our purpose is and valuing it, having a clear separation of who we are apart from our partner, which is why we must know ourselves well, continue to give ourselves self-love, and honor our purpose whether we are in a relationship or not, just as our partner should do so for themselves. For example, if we want our partner to change in any way, this is not being love. Shetty reminds, quote, that is ownership. Ownership is born out of control, end quote. We are not in a relationship to control the other, nor do we want to be controlled. As a guru, you give because you love the person. What you give is being love in your actions, words, thoughtfulness, and considerations, and not seeking a particular reward. Much like most investments worth their substantial value, they take time to show the results we might hope will occur, but we don't give to get. We give to be love to our partner. Letting your partner pursue their purpose and lovingly supporting as they need and you can provide builds trust and bolsters confidence, not only in your partner toward their purpose, but in the bond you are building with each other. Another example is to lead by example, not to dictate. In other words, don't preach. Instead, just practice what uplifts your life without the expectation that your partner do the same. Again, these are actions that are part of the stages of love that will help you learn if you are compatible. Even if you're not, it doesn't mean that they are a bad person or that you are a bad person. You are merely avoiding unnecessary incompatibility down the road that would lead to a fissure later. Lastly, being a guru is not about helping our partner become the best we think they can be, but the best version of themselves they want to be. What we must know inside ourselves is if we want to support this person as they grow, whatever that growth may be. Because if we focus on what we want, we begin to deteriorate any trust that has already been built. quote, your partner is your guru, not your God. They help you become better, but they aren't better than you, end quote. Which is to say, your story can only be written by you, and you must not lose your identity even as you change and grow together. Quote, remember your own personality, values, and goals. Don't lose the thread of your own story, end quote. All that has been shared so far needs to be experienced in reverse as well. Do you feel support without expectation or judgment or ego from your partner? This is a two-way street of engagement, which again is why it takes time to know if this person is a good fit for you both. To both reside in a growth mindset is crucial, and that is nurtured by being curious about what they are passionate about, helping how you uniquely can, being open-minded as well as humble, setting that ego aside that we all have. An important finding to keep in mind when we consider offering criticism is that, quote, critical feedback has been identified as one of the most common triggers that sends us into a fixed mindset, end quote. To further this point of choosing to let go of criticism and using fear as a motivator, Shetty writes, quote, criticism is lazy communication. It's not constructive, compassionate, or collaborative. Look for ways to communicate so that the other person can consume, digest, and apply your input effectively by giving suggestions instead of criticism. And then you let go. That's the other part I think we have to remember. You may give them, but you have to let go and not have any expectations. This is why modeling is often better than even the suggestions, because you just live well. Live the life that brings you joy. And that is often quite inspiring. Not that they're going to do the exact same thing, but they might be reminded to, oh, maybe I should give what I love a try too. If it makes that person that I love so happy and fulfilled, maybe I'll find that feeling too in doing what I love. So to conclude this thought, the gift of being each other's guru while coming with some, quote, discomfort of change is offset by the delight of shared understanding. The growth that a guru and student cultivate keeps a relationship exciting and new, even as it matures and you grow more familiar with each other, end quote. So that's the second ashram of love, where you're stepping into love, you're exploring it, you're considering through all the time that you're going to share and spend together, whether this is a partnership you want to stay in. The third ashram of love is knowing how to lovingly protect love while going through struggles. Simply because we are in the third stage doesn't mean we forget the previous two that we've just discussed. In fact, we continue to bring those skills with us because it is during struggling times that we must know how to self-reflect and self-examine to understand what is blocking our ability to be loving as our relationship grows and evolves. We must also know how to give ourselves self-love and not neglect what we need. In either the instance of navigating lovingly forward with our partner or realizing the partnership will come to an end, we deepen love regardless. Why? Because we have practiced lovingly how to navigate struggle without losing ourselves, but also trying to understand and love our partner as we travel forward. Now, I could detail this part 3 of the book, but I think it would be more helpful to read it on your own, as it will be very specific to each of our journeys and where we find ourselves. For example, you may currently be in a relationship and are seeking skills and tools on how to fight well, because this is a necessary thing. This is a necessary tool. To fight is to grow, to understand. But if you don't do it lovingly, then it could harm the relationship. When you do it lovingly, then it actually deepens understanding and builds trust. And there is a loving way to do it, and he teaches it very specifically in the book. Or you may be in need of ending a relationship, but are scared to do so. Or maybe you are trying to give yourself permission to speak up, but in a loving yet clear way that honors you. This chapter is a wonderful resource. There's a couple chapters actually in this section for all and more ways to protect both the love of a loving relationship and the self-love that should always travel with you through relationships and in between relationships as well as after relationships. So that's my nudge to check the book out, because again, it will be very specific. You will be looking for very specific information based on where you are and what you want to find. The fourth and final ashram of love is connection by extending our love to each and every person and area of our life, having compassion for all living entities. This is the highest expression of love, and all previous stages are preparing you to be able to live in this stage every single day of your life. One of the aspects, and in fact, fundamental points of Jay Shetty's book is one I found to be deeply enlightening and a breath of fresh air. This book, 8 Rules of Love, is actually not about learning how to find your love match. Nope. In fact, it is about realizing that each and every relationship we choose to be in or have been in is in actuality providing us an opportunity to learn how to be love in every single moment and day of our life during our one and only life on this planet. Which is to say, quote, the way you perfect love is not by waiting to find it or have it, but by creating it with everyone all the time. It's the great gift that love has to offer, end quote. Shetty goes on to say, quote, we want love in our lives, and we naturally assume it should take the form of romantic love. But it's a misconception that the only love in your life is between you and your partner, your family, and your friends. It's a misconception that life is meant to be a love story between you and one other person. That love is just a stepping stone. Having a partner isn't the end goal. It's practice for something bigger and life-changing, a form of love that is even more expansive and rewarding than love, end quote. If we are in a romantic relationship, our partners give us a chance to practice being in love. But, quote, we don't have to fulfill our romantic desires to get there. It is available to all of us to use every day, and it is infinite, end quote. And that is just the point. Being involved romantically is a desire. It is not something that is required to live a fulfilling life. I think it's important to point out what motivates us to grow and change. And some of us are self-motivated. Some of us choose to continue to learn and grow. And we might do this when we're in a relationship, we might not. But there are a lot of instances, and Shetty points this out too, that when we're in a relationship, it becomes easier to just exist. He writes that often couples say they want to grow old together, but often all they're doing is just getting old. They're not growing individually, and thus deepening and strengthening their relationship. So it's possible to grow in a relationship. It's not easy and often doesn't happen. But at the same time, the motivation often comes when we're in a relationship to change, to grow, because we want to remain in that relationship. And that is why so many of us are in a relationship, is to grow and to change and to inspire the one we are with to grow and change as well. It's a two-way street. But it does not mean you have to have been or be in a relationship to reach this amazing place he talks about as the 4th ashram of love. You can learn these lessons of how to be loving and be loved in or out of a romantic relationship. It's a choice you make to grow and have a growth mindset. That is the lesson that was a big aha for me, because it's never felt, to me, what I would hear often is that there's only one way to be fulfilled, and it's being in a romantic relationship, when my experience has not revealed that to be true. So many of my ahas, my growth moments, have happened outside of relationships. I have learned things in relationships. I always try to assess and examine afterwards when I've figured out that it was not right, or even during it, that what I did wrong. And I have also mistakenly blamed. And I'm trying, and I'm learning how to step away from that and just take responsibility for what I could have done better and how I need to grow and what I need to change. But that is so powerful to understand, that the impression, if it is not making you feel that you are enough, that you are loved, that life is amazing every single day in the sense of being able to be love and experience love, if you don't feel that, because for whatever reason, the impression, the ideas, the truth, the mistruths, I should say, that are being told to you, they don't make you feel that way, then re-examine them. Because you don't need to be in a romantic relationship. You can be, though. I just really want to put that out there because I wish I would have heard that too. So let's talk about this idea, this concept that you can be love every single day and experience it every single day. How does that work? And wait a second, Shannon, isn't that just inviting the opportunity to be walked all over? Well, and there's the idea that, yes, if we misunderstand what this means, that can happen, absolutely. But I love his lesson about radius of respect. So number 10 is understand the skill of a radius of respect. Quote, when someone is toxic, we can love them from a radius of respect, end quote. So again, you might be saying, wait a second. I'm not really into this idea of radical acceptance. I am not going to subject myself to destructive relationships, whether that be caused around family members or friends, etc. And you're correct. You should never do so. In fact, it would not be loving toward yourself to put yourself in situations that are harmful emotionally or physically. If the person who we acknowledge is toxic is also someone we don't want to entirely eradicate from our lives, this is where all of our skills of how to be love, both to ourselves and to them, are put into practice. Shetty teaches that when we encounter someone who is hard to be around, known or unknown to us, so we don't know why it's hard to be around them, but that maybe we don't know ourselves well enough to understand, but we just don't feel comfortable, something doesn't feel right, it's just off, or maybe we are very self-aware and we know exactly why. Quote, the first step toward loving them is to understand that, if anything, our reaction to them reveals something about ourselves, end quote. He goes on to share examples, but our lives are a constant mirror of what we have put out into the world. Remember, karma. And our life journey is full of lessons that, if we choose to see them as lessons, can improve the quality of our daily experience. In such instances where we have a family member, a loved one, anyone that we want to keep in our lives, but we realize this is not healthy to do so, in such instances, you may not even come into contact with a person. Maybe it's something you watch on the news. Maybe it's a figure or whatnot. You're listening to an idea. You're reading. It could be reading a book. It could be anything where something is said or done, and it just raises your hackles. There is a lesson to be learned about yourself regarding why your hackles went up, if you choose to see it. When it comes to someone who, say, a family member or an ex-partner or who you are co-parenting with, for example, the radius of respect entails, quote, standing at the distance where we can still respect and support them than to be too close and have our resentment grow, end quote. Only you will know this distance. Honor what you need. It may change with time. More is needed, less is needed. But when you create a loving environment for yourself in your daily life, you will know what the right distance is each day. By putting into place the radius of respect, you can continue to be loving because you are, quote, protected from feeling used, and you are allowed to wish them well from afar until you are ready to love them up close, end quote. And that up close may never happen, but it could. Again, you will be able to know if you have self-awareness. That's number 10. Understand the skill of radius of respect. Number 11, experience love in its different forms. Quote, when we expand our radius of love, we have the opportunity to experience love every day, at every moment, end quote. It is when we broaden our definition of love and step away from the narrow ideals that have been placed into our minds unconsciously that we have accepted, that we, through our actions of being love, begin to experience feeling the love we at first were searching for. Quote, love is available whenever you want to feel it by giving it to others, end quote. So number 11 is experience love in its different forms. You don't know how it's going to enter your life, but if you are being love, you will experience and see it every single day. It is there. 12, give love. Quote, giving love solves the human need that is even greater than romantic love. I need to be of service. There is no greater ecstasy than that, end quote. And this is why holding your purpose, your dharma, first finding your dharma, needs to be the leading priority in your life. It is crucial to continue to give yourself self-love throughout your life journey, and to be of service does not mean you ignore your needs or your boundaries, because when you are unable to give what you can uniquely give because you haven't nourished yourself regularly with what fuels you, protects you, supports you, the world is missing out. One more quote on this topic. You can seek love your whole life and never find it, or you can give love your whole life and experience joy. So number 12 is simply give love. And this can be in so many different forms. It is, as we'll talk about in this next item, it can be as simple as, well, let's talk about that. Number 13 is be love. This entire list has been about how to be love, and all the examples we've talked about thus far are how you be love. But specifically, let's talk about the concept be love. Quote, we impact one another in all we do, end quote. Through small actions and thoughts that involve practicing understanding, support, and belief in what those around us are doing, accepting and extending appreciation, we are being love in our everyday lives. They need not be grand or big or even cost expenditure gestures. They just need to be sincere and with the recipient, not the giver, in mind. Quote, instead of expecting love, we have to find ways of expressing love. We've been taught to believe that the only way we can experience love is when we receive it. But you can feel love anytime you want to by simply connecting with the love that is always within you, end quote. Shetty breaks down the various zones of love we have in our lives: family and partner, friends, colleagues, community, strangers, organization, and the earth. We can be love in each one of these situations according to their needs and our relationship with each one through something as simple as a smile, by being respectful, following through on promises, connecting in a way that shows we were listening or see them as an individual if it is, for example, a colleague at work, caring for our Mother Earth with thoughtful choices as to how we go through our days and appreciating the gifts she gives us all. Quote, the greatest way to experience love is to give it. End quote. We've talked about it before here on the podcast in episode 287, where I shared 5 things to do to build healthy relationships. We all are innately seeking the 5 A's: appreciation, affection, attention, allowing, acceptance. And here is the key to finding each one. Are you ready? Be them. Be appreciative. Be affectionate. Give your full attention. Allow others to be themselves. Accept others for being who they are. You may not want to strike up an intimate romantic relationship with every person, but in choosing this action every time with every person you come across, you are being love. And that is number 13. Be love. Last but not least, number 14. Embrace the paradox of love. Quote, experience love, practice it, and create it instead of waiting for it to find you. The more you do this, the more you will experience the depths of love from different people through every single day for the rest of your life. For too long in my own life, I sought love. I made mistakes up and down this list of teachings that Shetty provides because I didn't know what love really was. So many influences had made an impression on me that it wasn't until I started to acknowledge that what was purported to be love didn't feel loving. And so I began to be a student, first of myself, and then of putting into practice what I have learned from those far wiser than I on this topic, Jay Shetty being one such person. To experience love, real love, is to be it in our everyday, no matter our relationship status. If we are in a romantic relationship, we can continually be a student and be practicing love. If we are not in a romantic relationship, we are still in many other relationships, and love can be expressed and exchanged there as well. Our life today has the potential to have as much or as little love as we wish to bring to the world, and it is far easier to love when we put the expectations of needing to find it first aside. In my morning meditation, I close each session with the following intention expressed audibly. May you be content. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be kind. May you be love. May your life be filled with peace. I have included inspiration for this phrasing of choice from mindfulness teachers, of which I've read their books, and then included my own regarding what I need to remember to practice in my daily life. So it was important for me to remind myself each day to be love. Be what I want to experience. Give without the expectation of receiving. That giving does not exclude me. And that is so vitally important. It's how we learn to be love. Start by being loving to yourself. I hope today's episode offered insight, maybe some inspiration in how to cultivate a deeply fulfilling life full of and grounded in real love. Be sure to explore Jay Shetty's latest book, 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go. And You can find the show notes for our conversation today on the blog at thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 360. And I'll meet you in my kitchen to share this week's Petite plaisir. So we're going to go outside and get the chives. You two going to come with me? What side of the garden? Okay. Going outside. Oh, there we are. Oh, it's raining today. It's been lovely. I hear the rain. Okay, so my chives are right here by the garden, the kitchen garden door. I'm just snapping off a few, aren't I now? You smell them? She's like, oh, chives? Interesting. I don't think I should eat those, but I smell. She's licking them. You're a goose. I love you. Okay, so now we're going to go back inside. I just have a couple chives with me. Don't need that many. The freshness is key. And I'm just going to chop them up as finely as you can. Right, Armin? They're watching me with great intention. It's like, what are you doing? Oh, the birds are chatting, aren't they? Oh. So here we go. Nice and fine. Millimeters, just really petite little dicing here. And really it's up to you how much you want. I like a good tablespoon. But again, teaspoon would be good too. You don't really need too much. So this is a good flavor, and it is powerful. Okay, so I got that. Now we're gonna saute them. Now I'm turning on my stove, my skillet. I have a cast iron skillet that's been seasoned, and to where I'm gonna make my French omelet. And I've made this French omelet with instructions, video instructions, during the first season of the Simply Luxurious Kitchen. So you can watch how to make this very simple 2-egg French omelet. You don't have to flip anything. It'll look fabulous the way we do it. It's a trifold, so simple. And there's no cheese or nothing, but it's gonna taste like there's cheese in there. And if you like to add cheese, you absolutely could. We're gonna make sure it's well seasoned and very, very easy. So we're gonna make the omelet so that we can add this topping. Here we go. I've just got my 2 eggs out. And I'm putting them in a Pyrex here to whisk up. There goes Miss Nell. Got my whisk. Whisk. And this one's really well incorporated. You could also do this on just one single egg, sunny side up. And this, I mean, you don't have to make a French omelet to do this. This is just how I enjoyed it at a recent restaurant outing for brunch. So my pan is heating up. Okay. And this is key. You do want to make your omelet or your egg, whatever you're doing, with butter, not olive oil, because it's going to add more flavor. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to add more flavor to this particular detail. So melt about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, not salted, unsalted butter, the best butter you can find. Ooh, it's already in there. Good, good, good. You're looking beautiful. And that's really all you need to make this as far as extra ingredients. I have my chives chopped, I have my 2 eggs, and I have my butter. Oh, and then salt and pepper, of course. Okay, let's add the egg to the pan. Beautiful. Okay, so my eggs, I'm just making sure that they fill the whole bottom of the pan. I'm adding some flaky sea salt. I'm adding about 3 or 4 turns of freshly ground black pepper. And I'm gonna use a spatula. Spatula works the best for making omelets because you can shift around the egg batter and make it as cylindrical or circular as you want. So when did I have this dish and where did I get the inspiration? So I went to brunch just recently with a good friend at a new restaurant here in Bend that opened just back in January. And they just started having brunch though. And it's a French inspired cuisine restaurant. And I was like, ooh, I gotta check this out. Well, of course I'm gonna try their omelet. It just looked, I just love seeing how they were gonna approach it. Having had omelets in France at bistros and brasseries and whatnot. And as we know, omelet is typically for lunch or dinner in France. They do not have eggs for breakfast. So I was very curious to try it. And I do always love a good omelet. I make an omelet every Sunday. Anyway, so it came out, and the chef actually put French cheese in the middle, which was just made it that much more special. But what he had on top was what I could discern as chives, but they seemed to appear to be in a sauce. And so of course I'm tasting them. Like, what does he have in the sauce? What is it? Well, what it is simply sauteed chives. So it's just chives sauteed for about 30 seconds, no more than a minute, in the melted butter that you just made your omelet in the skillet. So the omelet is almost done. It's that simple. I know, but it changed the entire bite, the complexity of the bite. And it's instead of just sprinkling it on fresh, so you're adding a little bit more element flavor, add a little bit of bringing out the essence of the chive even more. It really makes the flavor of the chive more powerful. If you like the allium aspect of a chive, you're gonna love this. And again, add it to a sunny side up egg. You can add it to fish. You can add it to anything that you like to put chives on. Just add it, punch it up a bit by frying it for 30 seconds. Okay, so now I'm gonna tri-fold it. And you tri-fold it before all of the egg batter is cooked. You don't want to wait until everything's cooked solid. You want a little bit of runniness, and that's what makes it taste like you actually have cheese in it, but you don't. But because you flavored it or seasoned it with salt and pepper, it just tastes like it should, like eggs. Beautiful, beautiful, fresh eggs. Oh, this is going to be a very delicate one. Perfect. Now, plate it up. Voila. Keep your skillet on. Keep your skillet on. If you need to put more butter in, put more butter in, but you probably have enough. I usually put a little bit more, like a teaspoon more of unsalted butter. But you don't need that much because you already actually have probably a bit in your pan, and it will just give you the flavor that you want without wasting more butter. So okay, I'm melting the butter, and this is all you do. This is the Petite Plaisir, beginning here. So I just made the dish that you're gonna put on top of. All you need to do to add more flavor is simply chop up your chives very finely and drop them in, hear that? To the butter. And the butter is all kind of in one little corner of the pan. And you just put the green chives right in there, and they'll start bubbling. This is on about medium heat, medium to low heat. Oh, the fragrance. You smell that? You smell chives? You can just smell them even more. It just really basically like reduces, like what you do with wine. It reduces the wine and amplifies what's already great and lovely about them. You just do it for 30 seconds. They're going to still remain green. Beautiful. There we go. Put it on top of the omelet. Just like that. And it's beautiful too because you have a little green. And that's all. Sauteed chives to add a little extra punch of flavor. Let's try a bite. Yum yum. It's just a totally different dish with one simple shift of how you add the fresh herbs. And that's the Petite Plaisir this week. Bon appetit!
And so there you have it. One of the simplest ways to punch up the flavor on a very basic dish for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petite Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. And so with that, the summer begins, and I am beginning to record episodes for the new season of the Simply Luxurious Cooking Show, which will begin to air this September, the second Saturday in September. And because of that, there is only one episode in July, and that will be the third Wednesday of July on the 19th, but it is a full episode. We're going to talk about decor and all the lessons that I've learned and want to share with regards to renovating and customizing one's home, whether it is in the big decisions and steps with regards to working with a contractor or just small decisions that are significant, that make a big difference in our homes. Because there were a lot of highs, but there were some struggles and stresses and headaches, and I've learned a lot, and I would love to share. With that said, I just gave a tour of my office this last weekend. So if you're curious about where this podcast is recorded, it took over 2 years to customize this space, but it is largely done minus the floor. And I was so excited to share it with top tier members this weekend. And next month in July, which is why I flipped the episodes, and this episode appeared today and the other episode that appears on the 19th will appear in July, is because I'm waiting for my screen door to be finished and picking it up in early July so that I can give you a tour of the front area or entryway, exterior entryway into my home, which will include the screen door, and also the renovated or updated version of my foyer. So with that said, I hope you have a wonderful start to summer. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And until Wednesday the 19th, I'll be on the blog. Bonjour.
Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, with the shortened URL tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, pick up my new book, which became both a bestseller and #1 new release in France Travel, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment. Available in all 4 formats for your preferred reading or listening. My first book, titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and my second book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, are also available in each of the 4 formats. Readers can now join the more intimate The Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which offers the benefits of ad-free reading site-wide, unlimited access and exclusive access to content on the blog, such as the monthly A Cup of Moments with Shannon video chat, tours of my home Le Papillon, the monthly What Made Me Smile post, and monthly Ponderings post, as well as the exclusive opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during the annual French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news, as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart each new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free monthly newsletter, arriving on the last day of each month in your inbox. There is also a weekly newsletter, which is also free, and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cuppa or cup of morning coffee, and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Look for 2 new episodes of this podcast on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of each month. And until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Thank you for tuning in. Bonne journée.